I try to push the boundary of printmaking also in those ways. And while doing those sort of activities, you somehow get so much into it because it gives you that freedom also to move and like to get involved with the whole process. So that sort of open up those possibilities.
Hello, print friends, and welcome to the 92nd episode of Pine Copper Lime, the internet's #1 printmaking podcast. I'm your host, Miranda Metcalf. I release weekly podcasts with people in the print world who are doing something a bit beyond the expected. So please subscribe on your podcast listening app of choice. You can also find Pine Copper Lime on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and you can find all of this at pinecopperlime.com. We also have a Patreon page where supporters can join at tiers that start at just $1 a month, and that really helps us to keep bringing you hot printmaking content every week. You can also get thank yous like stickers, prints, and mugs, as well as access to our brand new bonus content. That's right, extra little mini episodes we're calling Shop Talk with our editor, Timothy Pauschak. These are quick and dirty tips and tricks with our guests from materials, processes, business advice, and just general studio nonsense. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, you can check out the link in the show notes, sign up, and hear Tim's chat with today's guest. Printmaking forever, shun the non-believers. Pine Copper Lime is brought to you by Speedball Art Products, who've been offering a diverse range of high-quality products to your practice since 1997. Products like their line of professional screen printing tools. Speedball believes that professional-grade quality doesn't have to ruin your budget. Their aluminum squeegees, scoop coaters, and high-mesh count screens are perfectly suited to outfit your workspace without changing your books from black to red. So if you want to upgrade your space from hobbyist to pro, head on over to Speedball's website and see where you can pick up your new favorite setup. There's a link in the show notes. This episode of Pine Copper Lime is also brought to you by McLean's Printmaking Supplies, who've been dedicated to the art and artists of relief printmaking since 1979. The small specialist team in the Pacific Northwest is the leading supplier of Japanese relief tools to printmakers in the US and abroad, whose primary purpose is to help you find the materials and support you need to reach your printmaking goals. Our editor, Timothy Pauschak's two favorite tools are his Watatsuwari Sankakuto 3mm V-gouge and his Josuai Maruto 1mm U-gouge from McLean's. But you don't have to take our word for it, because these tools truly speak for themselves. Head on over to McLean's at imcleans.com to pick out your new favorite tool and keep on carving. My guest this week is Shivangi Ladha, who joined me from her studio in Delhi, India, where she was teaching a workshop. We talk about using printmaking as a drawing tool, all of the repetitions in our daily lives, exploring the self-through process, and providing people with a place to tell their stories. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and prepare to listen deeply with Shivangi Ladha. Hi Shivangi, how's it going?
I'm good.
Excellent. Well, I am really happy that we got a chance to connect. I discovered your work when I was looking at the artist who had done collaborations with IPCNY, and I was just really delighted to find what you do, because it's always exciting to find new work from a printmaker who is using the medium in sort of unexpected ways and producing beautiful outcomes with it.
Thank you so much, Miranda, for inviting me to your platform. It looks a great platform, and I'm really happy to be part of it. And I'm there to answer all your questions and whatever curiosities you have about the works.
So before we start to dive into your practice in depth, would you please introduce yourself and let people know who you are, where you are, and what you do?
So I'm Shivangi Ladha. I'm an artist. I don't call myself just a printmaker because I work with a lot of different mediums, but printmaking plays a really important role in my practice because my work is very much drawing based. I'm based in Delhi, and I studied at Royal College of Art. I did my MA in printmaking there, and I graduated in 2016. Since then, I've been practicing on my own as an independent artist, and alongside, I have taught. I do freelance works. I take workshops, and I run my really small platform called India Printmaker House. So this is all about me.
Beautiful. Well, where did you grow up and what role did art play in that part of your life?
So I grew up in this really small city called Gwalior. It's like a really it's in Madhya Pradesh, India. And growing up, I think I was always into art somehow. Like naturally, I was a lot into it, and I it was my hobby. I can say that. So I always drew, paint, I did things. I really enjoyed working on my own and doing creatively things. And I did that like till my school. Like I was a lot into it, and my parents were obviously they were observing my activities and stuff, and then they told me, why not, why don't you try and do your graduation in fine arts? I never thought of doing it professionally. Like I mean, I had in mind that I'll be a lawyer or I'll do something else. Like I never thought of it like as a profession. But my parents somehow thought that I think I'll do better in what I do right now and might not suit for any other sort of profession. So they were like, okay, just go and give an exam and just apply to these art universities and see if you get it or not.
Oh, that's really funny. That's
Yeah.
really the opposite, I feel like, of the story that so many artists have of, I wanted to be an artist and my parents wanted me to do something practical, but it was the other way around for
Yeah.
you. Yeah, I mean, that's just a really beautiful story, I think, of parents knowing their kids and knowing what's going to make them happy.
Yeah. I mean, I would not say that they understood like so what we call art now, like after like studying it, and like they didn't understand art from that perspective. They thought of it more in a very like a naive sort of, and they had a naive understanding of what art was, and they were okay with that, and they were like, okay, why don't you just do it? So then that's how I started actually. That's how I got through my bachelor's in College of Art, Delhi University. And that's how I like started getting into it a lot. Then I started sketching a lot, drawing, and then people will mentor me like how I should do this, that. But I think that was the time when I seriously got into it, and then I started discovering more about art because even myself, I didn't know what exactly it was until I started doing it like every day.
So, when did printmaking come into your story and come into your practice?
So I did my bachelor's in painting. So I come from a painting background, but still my practice has always been around drawing. Like drawing is such a direct sort of an expression, and drawing sometimes doesn't need any sort of lot of mediums. Like you sometimes you're just good with pen and a paper, and you can just directly express your feelings you are feeling at that moment of time. So in that sense, like drawing has always been there for me, in sort of like I'll always maintain a sketchbook and a journal where I'll doodle and express my feelings and everything. So I always had that habit. And somehow even my practice, like even my paintings had that sort of a drawing element to it. Like I'll make these figures with a lot of using lines and like very less colors and stuff. And then I decided why not I do printmaking, because printmaking somehow push the idea of drawing. So printmaking has so many different kind of techniques, and every technique gives you a very different sort of feeling, sort of lines, textures. So I thought that printmaking like really suited my practice that time, and I really wanted to explore that because of my line drawings and those sort of techniques I was using at that time.
It's interesting that you say that because I feel like a lot of times printmaking has this strong foundation in the figurative, in the power of a line. And that's one of the things that people always say about it. But they'll often counter that with, but it doesn't have the immediacy like painting. So it's funny that you say what drew you to drawing was the immediacy, because with printmaking, it's so fiddly, right? Like if you're doing an etching, there's a lot of steps before you finally get the final outcome of the image. So do you think that maybe just printmaking and drawing within your practice, they just sort of support you and serve two different functions in two different ways?
I think there's more too. So one is visually, like how I want my end result to be in a line form or whatever. But like I think the process is also very important in my practice. So printmaking involves like a lot of repetition and a lot of labor, you know. It's such a laborious process. Like sometimes you do the same process 10 times to achieve a result which you've been aiming for. And that's sort of like, I can really relate to the medium in the sense like sometimes, you do the same things again and again every day, like waking up, having breakfast, going to work, and there's so much this repetition, monotonous things in life which are happening simultaneously, and then even the process is like that. So I somehow relate to that, and then process becomes a really important thing in my practice, because it's also the medium is changing me also in some ways when I'm doing the same thing again and again. So it's sort of it's technique, and then I'm getting a result, but it's also this process which I'm involved in, which is somehow helping me also to evolve and to giving me space to think and do different activities. And
So I know sometimes when people come to printmaking, they'll get to the point where they can really get into a flow state when they're working, whether they're carving or editioning, and they get to a point where their body just knows what to do. They know the steps, and then they can just kind of let go. Is that what you mean by like the medium changing you?
yeah, because like you're so involved, and actually like with me, like the way I do printmaking, sometimes there has been times when I feel restricted with the size of the plate or the size of the press, because once sometimes you have a specific size and you need to pass your press in that certain size and stuff, and it sometimes gets very restricted. And so I have used printmaking in a very experimental ways, where I have literally taken a lot of multiple prints on the same paper, or I have really increased the size of the screen and moved paper with my while I'm printing. I really don't enjoy registrations. Like I feel they're so, I feel very restricted with registrations. I like really hate them, and I try to move away from it. So in that sort of thing, I think I try to push the boundary of printmaking also in those ways. And while doing those sort of activities, you somehow get so much into it, the process, because it gives you that freedom also to move and like to get involved with the whole process. So that sort of open up those possibilities.
And I've seen in your practice that you use leaves or really anything you need to create that repeated image, because that's what printmaking is. It's ink and transfer the ink and ink and transfer the ink. At least that's the umbrella under which we put everything. So it's interesting to hear for you that screen printing on walls, and you really develop this kind of fluid relationship with printmaking, and that you don't feel bound by the rules of printmaking that other artists maybe feel they need to stick to or even cling to as a foundation to support their practice.
Yeah.
So what do you think it is about you or your work or your training that you didn't really feel like you had to play by those rules, and that you were able to have a really natural, dynamic relationship with the medium?
It's very much connected to my daily life routine and the place. Like like sometimes even as a women artist, and coming from background like India, where there is a sort of oppression for women. It's not like a very not very, very open-minded society first for art. I mean, not a lot of people are open-minded with somebody pursuing art, and then women pursuing art, it gets more difficult. I mean, it's the fact, and having those sort of things build up this context around my work, and then it comes very naturally for me to move away from these technicalities which people have already defined to a technique. I feel that I need to move away from these structures and restrictions and techniques, and I need to something discover on my own, maybe move away from paper and do it directly on the walls. And why not, like, why only to keep printmaking restricted on a paper? Why not just do it on the walls directly? So these, I think, it's not just technically for me, but it has a deeper layers of like where I come from, my experiences, my daily things, my interactions with people, and then I think all that comes in the process, and that's sort of build these different layers and in my works and understanding to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there about how being a woman in the arts, you're already breaking some rules.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what makes you think that you need to, follow any of the other ones? Because you're already working outside of the box. So I know that the way that you work can be a bit experimental and that you're really interested in the body process. This actual way that your body moves and is involved in creating the work. And I really like this because I think that the physical experience of art making does get lost sometimes. We see this finished product on the wall in a gallery, a museum, and it's perfectly curated, perfectly lit, perfectly installed, etc., etc. But that separates it from the messiness of art making, from getting the ink under your nails. So could you speak to your relationship with your body in the act of making and how that affects the outcomes?
In response to this question, I would like to talk about one of my work called Self Portrait, which I created in like 2017-18, where, it's a series of these prints. And if you see those prints, there's a narration to it, there's a story, there's a process, and each and every print looks different from each other. And I would say that each print represents a particular phase in my life at that time. So it's very, very connected to what I was going through that time during that phase when I created those series. I was away from my home, India. I was studying in London, and coming from a small city to a place like Delhi, and then going to London, where your identity is always evolving, always changing. It's so fluid. So I started thinking a lot about questioning a lot about my own identity, and questioning about like, who am I? Like, am I just if I just see from a nationality point of view, okay, I'm fine, I'm from India, but then am I something beyond that? Am I just, my skin color is this? Am I something more beyond that? Like, what is it? Who am I? So those sort of questions, I was facing those questions that time when I created those series, and I got a lot into a self exploration journey where I was just questioning those things and trying to think about it. And then I did a lot of things like meditation to self evaluate and self analyze about things about my own existence. And when I was making those works, I never thought about anything else. I was there in the process, and I was creating those works. I never had in my mind that I have to display them. I never had in my mind that I want to sell those works. I was doing that, and the last print of that series was completely dark. I repeated the image so many times that the print in the end resulted to be this really black block of drawings repeated 1,000 times on the same sheet of paper. And when I see those, I mean, I never thought I would sell those works, because I know that those works are not sellable, and nobody would like to get that black blob of print. But my intention was never to, that was never my intention to display it somewhere or to sell it, because I was going through that process and I had to express that in my work. So somehow that sort of relationship has been there with my personal self. There has been a personal journey, and my works are very much connect. And especially that series has been really personal to me. Somehow, yeah. So that has happened, and when I was doing that repetitive process, that somehow changed me also as a person. When I was doing the same thing again and again, it sort of figures were getting merged together in the later prints. And then I questioned about we are getting merged together in the end, and it's such a everyone is so similar to each other, and it's just this superficial skin color and all these things are so superficial. Why do people have to create like unnecessary things around it? It's so simple, we are all just one from within, and we are just in different forms, that's it, but we are all one people, like from inside. And that is what I got from that process. That was the understanding I got. That sort of relationship has been interesting in the ways that my art has taught me and changed me also as a person. It was through that process of making. While I was involved with screen printing, you use your entire body to pull that screen squeezy over and over again on your print. So it's a very sort of a laborious process of doing it, and doing it very consciously with a lot of awareness, and I think that really makes a difference.
Yeah, I know the exact work that you're talking about and that journey that it has of just repeating, repeating, and repeating until you have almost an entirely black square. So, and that actual figure itself is a little female nude. So, is this work a literal self-portrait as well as a metaphorical one?
So I used my image as a reference, but I always say that it's the voice of all the other people in that. It's like a crowd of people who are trying to. So the figure is kind of waking up, sort of a figure. So it's like trying to move towards something. They're trying to transcend to a space where there is no distinction between the forms. There is a sort of oneness to it. So it starts with that sort of movement, and then slowly it gets more denser. And in the last print, everything is getting merged together. There's no difference. I can't say that it's she or he or whatever. It's just bodies.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful because that's just speaks to how the more we lose our physical and aesthetic manifestations, the more we lose the artifice of exterior, the more we realize that we're all the same, we're all one. Now, you have a series that's in the British Museum's collection titled Has Each Violent Revolution Created Another Violent Society? Acid Attack Survivor. And these are portraits, as the name suggests, of acid attack survivors. And these are people that you actually photographed and interviewed and interacted with in order to do your research. And I'd really like to hear you speak to the process of connecting with people. Because I think sometimes when artists use images of bodies that have been through trauma that aren't their own, it can sometimes feel exploitative. And this series has none of that. You can tell that you're representing people with empathy and with respect. So I guess I want you to talk to your process of how you connected with the subjects and how you went about ensuring that the process was empathetic and humanizing.
So I would say that like my journey has been very spontaneous. So I never made a decision of if I should work with this theme or if this subject. I never made those sort of decisions. It somehow happened very naturally. So I was traveling to my hometown from Delhi. In my car, and on my way I stopped in this cafe called Shiro's Hangout Cafe. And that was the first time when I discovered this cafe, and there were these acid attack survivors were employed and they were working there basically. So I saw them for the first time, and before that I didn't even know that this sort of violence existed until then. When I saw that, I was quite touched by it, and I somehow naturally felt that I should do something regarding this. I should maybe work, I should maybe create awareness regarding this sort of a violence, and just do something around it through my practice to support these people. And during that time I was working with etching, because that's what I learned in my school. And it was very interesting how things, somehow all fell on place, because etching, you use acid to etch the plate in etching. And when I saw that acid attacks, I saw that they were attacked by the acid. So I was like, why not I draw their portraits using this process to express what they have gone through my works, and somehow support them in any way possible, right? So that's how it started. And when I got back home, I started reading more about it. I started researching more about it. I started to find that where all it took place, and then I found out that it's not it just didn't happen in India, but like a lot of places like Bangladesh, Pakistan, a lot of South Asian countries, and even in UK, it happened very recently, like one of these attacks. And I was all like so overwhelmed by all these, these things which I was learning about it. And I had to go deeper into the subject. And I actually contacted one of this person through social media called Ritu Seni. She's an activist. She has become an activist now, because that's how they somehow sustain themselves, because they've not been because their identity has been deformed, and it doesn't look that, when persons see for the first time, they don't have a good reaction to it somehow, and which comes very naturally. Even I didn't have that sort of a reaction when I first time saw that. And so they are not very accepted in the society, not fully accepted. And that's how being activist and spreading a word about it somehow also help them to sustain themselves. Otherwise, how will they live their life? So I met Ritu Seni. I met her personally. I took her out for lunch, and I thought it would be a nice gesture for me to even take her out, and it will be a good change for her too. And we had some conversations around it. And I during the conversation, I wanted to be I was trying to make the situation very light and like very casual. And I drew her portraits during those conversations. I took her pictures, and she was totally okay with it, unless I'm doing it for good work. And she was totally fine with it. And then we really had a good time. She shared her experiences with me, and it was a really tough work, to be honest, at time. Now I have moved on from it a lot, but it was a difficult series, to meet these people and then try to express their feelings through a work of art. It was a really difficult thing to do, to draw their portraits and then put it in the acid bath to let the line etched. I think it was difficult, but I'm really happy that I worked on that project, because I learned a lot. And it makes you realize that it's these outer forms really doesn't matter. It's the people, how they are from inside. And she had such a strong willpower, and there was so much to learn from her. And in the end, these things really matter in the end. So I wanted to bring this thing, and I wanted to creatively use this thing to show people, and that's all actually. So.
So did you connect with the other subjects in the series through her activism, or were they other employees at the cafe?
So I met a couple of people at the cafe. During that time, I interacted with them. I took their pictures and stuff. Then I met some people from the NGO. Personally, I wrote to them and I asked them to meet me. I met them, and then after that, for like more like lot of portraits, I started finding images on social media as well, and I started collecting a lot of images. So they were all mixed of hand-drawn images, spontaneous drawings, then images from social media, and I collected all the images and I started making their portraits.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can imagine an extremely difficult project, as you say, but one that I think really can be held up as an example for the ways in which art can bring emotional reality to things going on in the world that maybe gets lost, when people receive the information through other means. Considering it was such a difficult project to undertake, how did you go about self-care? How did you look after yourself while working on such a hard subject matter to kind of ensure that you could be there to keep doing the work and keep showing up for it?
It's a difficult question. I don't know. I think it just happened with the process, but there was a time when I took a very conscious decision of not to work on it anymore. And then I was like, I think I'm now done with the portraits, and I think this was the duration I wanted to work on, and I think I've given the best from my side. And I somehow then decided not to work on it after a point of time, because it was somehow making me a little just drawing the portraits and putting in acid was a really difficult thing for me to stand there and waiting for lines to get edged. So in that sense it was difficult, but then I'm happy, now in India it's not easy for you to find assets, so things are changing. There is a lot of awareness, and after I finished that project, there was one of the movie which got released on acid attack survivors just after 3 years of my project. And things are changing, and I'm really happy that people are talking about it, because somehow, they need to be accepted back in the society. People can't just judge people on the basis of their outer form. There is so much more, And yeah, so I was affected by it, but then it made me stronger, I feel. It did. And I learned a lot in the entire process. I really learned a lot.
Absolutely. And that'll be something that you can take with you as you go on and as you start working on other projects as well. Yeah. And so, speaking of which, what are you working on right now that you're excited about?
Well, I'm working on a lot of things at the moment, because my brain is like super chaotic, in the sense of like there's so many things happening. There's so many transitions and changes are happening around me, and all these this pandemic had a really great impact on all of us. So, I have so many ideas and thoughts and things I want to express, but the one thing I'm really stuck on right now, which I would like to discuss on, is about this project, which is inspired by my visit to a village called Piplantri in India. It's in Rajasthan. I was on a trip to Udaipur, and I ended up going to this village where they plant 111 trees when a girl child is born. So I was really happy to see what was happening, and it really inspired me to create something, produce some works around this idea. And I'm working on this series called Becoming Tree, where these people are turning into trees. So the idea is that how trees are appreciated just the way they are. Like you never judge a tree if it is a male or a female, or like you don't do those judgments with the tree. You just appreciate its beauty, and you just like to spend time around it, and you just appreciate the way it is. So the idea is that these people are becoming trees, and even they should be treated, how trees are treated, like they shouldn't be judged on the basis of because of their race or color or sex, all these things. So this is the project I'm still developing on, and I'm working on some really big screen prints. I'm doing etchings. I've created some monoprints on this idea, and I'm currently also I have collaborated with an artist who is a bookmaker, and we are making a book on this. So
Lovely. Yeah, I cannot wait to see
yeah.
that. Because just, yeah, as you're talking, I'm just sitting here thinking, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, she's right. We do not judge trees. I have never looked out my car window and thought, that is an ugly tree. Like, that has just never happened before. We
Yeah.
just look at every tree and just take it on how it is. And any differences, it's just like, oh, look at that one. That one's branch goes out really far. Yeah, I do not think that I have ever seen an ugly tree.
Yeah, they're all unique, you just, yeah.
I'm hoping that you might be able and willing to speak to us a little bit about printmaking in Delhi and printmaking maybe even more broadly in India. I know it's difficult to get a perspective on what's happening in any in-depth way in countries out there in the world just through the internet. And I'm sure this is doubly, triply so with a country like India that is so large and has such an incredible diversity of languages and cultures. But yeah, I mean, if you could speak sort of broadly to it, what would you want people to know about printmaking India that they might not know already?
So, I would say that India has a great history with printmaking and textile because we use a lot of block printing in India. That how it comes from, and there's so much interesting things have been done already. Like people have used. There are a lot of places where people are making their own colors and handmade colors, organic colors, creating their own brushes, and they're doing fantastic work. And it's a great place. The issue right now here it's that lack of resources. So we don't have good infrastructure. We don't have enough resources to support printmakers because printmaking sort of need an etching press. It needs a lot of different sort of materials, and in that ways I think India is lacking, but there are some really great artists who are doing great works, and there are so many artists who can't even speak and communicate in English, and they're doing fantastic work. And this was the reason, because there are lack of opportunities here. Even when I got back here, it was very difficult to find opportunities in printmaking in general, like there were not enough open calls, there were not many awards around printmaking. So that was one of the intention, like that somehow made me think a lot about this medium and how I can promote this medium, how can I can educate people about printmaking so that people understand what all is involved in the process and they buy the work, because people generally in India don't appreciate printmaking because they don't understand the technique, they don't know how it is made. They understand what painting is, they can connect with that, but in that sense printmaking is lacking a lot in India. So it's very difficult to sell a print in India. So I created this platform called India Printmaker House. And what we do with that platform is that we have collaborated with different art organizations in India. So we have collaborated with a co-working space, a manufacturer of printmaking products. Recently, we collaborated with Awagami Papers in Japan. So every year we have an open call for artists all over the India. They can apply. We have a jury, and they select the artist. So we showcase like 23 artists on our online platform. We have a winner, we have runners up, and we do residencies and we give grants. So the idea was to create, to make the space more active, to by doing certain things, by doing a lot of print workshops, so that people who doesn't even come from this background learn about this technique. They educate themselves, and maybe, in future they might want to buy a print, because they'll understand how much process, how much labor has been involved in the process of making a print. So I think in this ways we are. It's changing now. It got a little dull like 2 years back, the whole art scene. But it's changing now. People, there are galleries who are supporting printmakers. They are coming out, but we need more opportunities for sure. We need more infrastructure. We need more support to for printmakers here.
Yeah, that's interesting because for me, when I think about some of the biggest name contemporary printmakers out there, I think about people like Zarina Hashmi, and she's an artist who's definitely made this jump from the print world to the capital A, capital W art world. But someone like that, she must have quite a large profile, I would imagine, where you are, yes?
Yeah, I think Zarina Hashmi, I think everyone knows her. Zarina Hashmi and Krishna Reddy are these two printmakers, which I think every printmaker know, I think all over the world. Yeah, so they have done great work, and there's something to learn from them and to grow in this field and to promote this medium as much as we can.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a really good point, that just because some of the art stars within printmaking are from India, that doesn't mean that printmaking itself in India would be well known. It doesn't necessarily have to go both ways. I'm also thinking about what you were saying about those talented artists who don't possess English language skills and maybe don't have access to English language services. And so it doesn't matter how incredible the art that they might be making is, they're not getting the same access to opportunities as other artists. They're not getting their work out there as easily. I mean, it's something that I see in Thailand quite a bit as well. So I often think about all of the art that's going unseen out there in the world from incredible artists who just have a language barrier access issue because the art world runs on English.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because there's so many places where people don't speak good English and they are somehow not able to communicate very fluently about their works and about their practice. And I feel those, and there are those differences, and I think there should be more opportunities which are just on the basis of the visuals. I feel sometimes, um, or I don't know how to answer this question. It's a very difficult scenario, but there should be more opportunities where people are evaluated more on the basis of their visual works rather than the artist statement and other things, because there are a lot of people who really can't communicate properly in English. Or I don't know if it should happen both the sides. Maybe the artist should also maybe try to push themselves and to learn the language, apply for these things. Could maybe it should be both the sides. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, it could be. I don't know, though. I feel like the more I study other languages, the more silly and arbitrary and difficult English seems. Like the word Lucy and the word lucky. You just have taken out the K, but now you have to suddenly completely change the way you say the U. Like, what the fuck, English? But yeah, there are many opportunities in art where the images are, secondary to the words. And I think this is probably because art is so tied to academia and so much of the cultural influence in the art world comes from, you can spit on a canvas, but if you can write about it, here's your degree. And that's not to say that writing and research isn't important and can produce beautiful art practices, but we also, I think, still need to have a space where we can ask ourselves, is this successful without words as well?
Yeah, because sometimes I feel, we are visual artists and we chose, or maybe consciously or whatever, but we chose to express ourselves in this visual language, which is universally understood, and people connect with visuals, and everyone has their own interpretations and everything. And then sometimes I wonder, why do you have to express too much in words? I mean, you can sometimes, it's sometimes interesting to just look at the work and have your own, own story about it. It's not, sometimes it can be too much to ask a lot of questions about the work.
Yeah, I agree. Let's start it. We can call it the No Words Art Prize. And yeah, it'll be just your image. That's all you get. You don't have any supporting text, and that's that the prize goes to the best image. It does get me sometimes, because it's when we privilege words over images, it can do a disservice to the image. But I think it more egregiously does a disservice to that special place that only visual communication can get to, that verbal communication can't.
Exactly.
There are parts of the human experience, just emotional and spiritual and intellectual even, that can be accessed in new and interesting ways through visual communication. But if you're constantly placing that secondary to verbal communication, it's just, you're never going to let the verbal communication do its job.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the future. What is on the horizon that you're looking forward to?
Okay, so the current work, the Piplantri, inspired by the Piplantri village, this series is super, super interesting. You can find these works on my website later when I'm done with it. And you can also, I very frequently take print workshops. I organize a lot of workshops around the history of printmaking in India and paper making, and a lot of different things around printmaking and paper. So you can stay updated. You can follow my page on Instagram and website, and we constantly update about it. And you can follow those things on social media.
Excellent. And what is your handle and what is your website address?
So my website is very easy, shivangiladha.com, and my Instagram page is shivangi.ladha.
All right. Well, I will definitely put links to both of those in the show notes. And thanks for letting me borrow an hour of your afternoon and having a chat with me. I look forward to sharing it with people and staying in touch.
Thank you so much, Miranda, for inviting me for this interview. It was really great to connect with you and to share my thoughts and practice.
Oh, yeah. And I know that Delhi and Bangkok really aren't too far of a flight time away from each other, so please look us up should you ever find yourself over this way.
That would be great. I would love to connect with you in person. I think it will be a great. And whenever you come to India, please feel free to just message me. I would be happy to host you.
Oh, thank you. I would love that. Yeah. Well, that's our show for this week. Join me again next week when my guest will be Caledonia Curry. You won't want to miss it. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.